Hi everyone, welcome back to the HR Leaders Podcast. We've got a special episode for you today. We're here at McLaren and the McLaren Innovation Centre, home of the McLaren Group. We're going to be chatting with my good friend Mark Wilson, who's the Head of Talent Acquisition and Development. But as always, before we start the video, hit the subscribe button, turn on the notification bell, and follow on your favourite podcast platform. See you in the video. Welcome to the show, Mark. How are you?
I'm not too bad. Very excited that you're here.
As you can see, audience, we're not in the HR Leaders studio today. Where are we today?
We are in the McLaren Technology Centre in the outskirts of Woking, which is the headquarters of McLaren Automotive and the McLaren Formula One race team.
Amazing. And honestly, it looks even better than it does on Google.
It's a bit space age. It's quite an impressive place, both to work and to be able to invite people into. Which
Does it ever get old to you walking in this building? Because like that wow factor of just...
It becomes a place of work eventually, it's somewhere, my concern is getting parked and getting somewhere to plug my laptop in when it becomes somewhere you're coming into work. But it's lovely seeing people's faces when you get to invite them in and show them some of the cars that we've got down the boulevard, or some of the things that we're doing here, or just the facility itself, which is, as you've seen, it's pretty breathtaking.
Yeah, I'm sure it's not hard to convince people like us to come here.
No, not at all.
Like, oh no, we're going to have to come to McLaren. Oh,
yeah, well, it took a little bit of convincing, because like when you said that your driving wasn't your thing necessarily.
You're like, no,
it's about cars.
I nearly got blacklisted. You nearly blacklisted.
Yeah, this is car central. This is petrol head.
I should have said yes. I'm completely into cars as well.
No,
but then you would have tested me though. But then you would have said, Chris, what about this? And I'd have been like, I would have immediately be sweating.
What's your favourite McLaren?
Oh, don't do that to me, because I'd just be like, F1,
the orange one.
The orange one, yeah, the orange one. That's what I would have said. Yeah, the orange one with the.
It's like Pharrell at the Miami Grand Prix.
Yeah. I'm sure there's a lot of things, but what would you say is your favourite thing about working at McLaren?
Favourite thing about working at McLaren? I mean, we've been doing some work recently around what is it that attracts people to work here. And one of the comments that was made by one of our user groups, one of our forums, was it's a bit of a mic drop at the barbecue.
How do you work at McLaren?
McLaren, boom.
Do you have one? No.
Yeah. That's always the next question. We don't go to that second question.
Do you get a discount? No, do you get a discount?
I'm sure that I spoke nicely to the sales team, but we're not quite there yet. But yeah, the thing is, people know the name. They know some of the work that we're doing. And then when you get the opportunity to talk about what it is we do, if they're into cars, they're really interested and they're fascinated. If they're into performance sport, they're interested, they're fascinated. So there are lots of different angles. People have heard of the name, and that's the opportunity to talk about what it is we do that becomes much more interesting.
Or in general, just like working in an environment that's super fast, constant innovation.
Yeah, I mean, all of that comes with the territory, and this is a really young business. I think we were talking about it earlier, that the car company, automotive, have only been going 10 years this year.
Yeah.
We've gone from one model in 2012 to the lineup that we have now. We're launching our first hybrid in the next month. We've made 15 cars in that time. We're competing in the global supercar market from a standing start in very, very rarefied atmosphere, selling to really important customers globally. It's quite a shift that the business has been through. It's a bit of a ride.
Well, on that point then, how are you then differentiating yourselves and competing for talent? Because it can't just be about salary, and it can't, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and that's where discussing the projects that we're undertaking becomes really interesting. Now, you've picked up today some of the things that we're doing we can't talk about. Yeah, because it's commercially sensitive. But the work that we're doing, we're at the absolute outside edge of the automotive industry. We're the only manufacturer making cars profitably from carbon fiber. There isn't anywhere else that you can be working in the global automotive industry, working with the materials that we work with. We've got a facility in Sheffield who make our tubs that goes into every car that we've got on the road. That's a unique thing and very attractive to engineers to be able to work in that type of environment. You layer that up with the exclusivity, with the power, the performance, the the luxury, the scalability of the product, and the pace that we're working at, that then becomes a really interesting thing for people to come into. And the other piece of the sell of McLaren particularly is we're small. So in other automotive businesses where you'll have a tiny remit of responsibility and you'll be looking after one bit of one chassis arm on one product, here you're involved in the entire program. You're touching every single bit of that. When we go outside the door here, I can see 6 of the exec.
Because even when you said to me that we were looking at the whole floor, and you said, Chris, that's where the car starts, and that's where it ends, and you had the entire team all working.
From a blank bit of paper and a series of numbers that we want to make something that goes this fast, goes around corners this quickly, has this range, sells for this price, weighs this much, through to a finished product that's rolling out of the factory and being sold to customers in the Beverly Hills dealership in a 3-4 year cycle. That all happens here, and we've got people we've hired who've been involved in every step of that journey all the way through, and you can point at that on the road and say, I made that.
Yeah,
that's pretty
something
cool.
To be proud of.
Yeah, totally.
What are you hearing from candidates now, though, that you and the team interviewing? What are the main things that they're looking for, that they're highlighting to you?
Flexibility is massive. The whole post-pandemic world of being able to have that flexibility into your work life is key. I think that's coming up repeatedly in conversations. We're seeing...
How do you tackle that, by the way? Because obviously with what you do, in many of the roles, you have to be here.
It's really challenging. So, at certain points in that really fast life cycle, you got to be here, you got to be touching the car, you've got to be involved in the team collaborating and fixing things really quickly. But other times you don't. Now, how do you set the rules around that is one of the challenges we have within the HR community of how come they get to do that and we don't get to do that? And managing managers' expectations who might not have had to work with those parameters before. So people are used to having the teams around them all the time. But if the team don't have to be there, is that a requirement of that team at that moment in time? We're finding our way through. There are no rules. There's no...
You're kind of learning as you're going, really.
Yeah. And
so what was the actual advice you gave to managers, though? Kind of just that freedom within the framework. You decide with individual teams. What guidance did you give?
It's being able to advise. It's HR becoming that counsel or advisor to the business as to what's practical and sensible and required in order to undertake the work. That's the dialogue that's taking place. Now we're small, we're agile, we don't have the rigidity of the rules that might exist in other organizations, but it's got to be fair, it's got to be transparent, it's got to be consistent in order to be true to ourselves as an organization. Mm-hmm. And driving that through can be quite challenging,
especially if you've never led in that way before, or
we haven't had to respond to that, or we haven't had to work in these ways. It's all new. Mm-hmm. And one of the key strengths of the business has been able to cope with that ambiguity. I've seen people who join who want a more structured, rigid, automotive style 50,000 head organization, and this place has got with that pace and flexibility, there's a bit of ambiguity built into that you have to be able to cope with and roll with mm-hmm. in order to be here, survive, enjoy it, thrive. And it takes mental energy to be able to do that. Mm-hmm. So these are things that you have to know coming in. And it's I get requests a lot of time from people saying, I want to work for McLaren. And it's like, know what you're coming into, know what this place is like, know what I get why you want to be involved and around the cool stuff that we're doing, but also know that with that comes a whole load of other things that you have to have your eyes wide open to in order for it to be an enjoyable experience for you. Mm-hmm. Because the brand's one thing, but the experience of being here is another.
Yeah, I'm sure people get caught up with the shiny lights, all of them,
of course,
everything around that, and they're like, whoa, this is very fast-paced, innovative.
I've got a load of responsibility. I've got to do a thing. I've got to be in that meeting. I've got to get an output from that. That bit has to be done and completed to go through to the next gateway, so that those people can do their thing and get that car shipped to the next stage in the gateway. All of that.
Yeah.
But if it floats your boat, it's great. It's immense. You get more experience here than you could ever imagine. But the downside of that is you're on it.
How do you assess for that in the recruitment process?
How do we assess for that? I mean, it's some of it's based on expectation management. So
just saying out front, this is okay.
Yeah, this is what it is. I've always felt that any recruitment process, it's imparting that information as much as possible, dispelling any myths, overcoming any preconceived ideas, and say this is the reality of what this is about. Are you comfortable with that? Can you give me an example of how you've done that thing? Can you tell me what you've done in a situation that you haven't been able to get the thing that you want? Those type of examples that you get from candidates, you can tell quickly whether that's...
Have you had people like to self-select out then?
Yeah.
Actually, no, this is probably not for me. Have you
quite often, and hopefully in as early a stage as possible in the nicest possible way, because if you get 3, 4, 5 stages down the pathway, you've incurred a lot of personal investment to get to that point, and you'd rather know this is what it's like here, and
it's best for both parties. It's a win-win, really. The last thing you want to do is, because you get many organizations who like to talk the talk, and then you get into the business and you're like, well, this is not what I signed up for. This is not the culture which was described. This is not the experience as described.
There are lots of unwritten rules here, or hang on a minute, this isn't, this isn't what it says on the tin. I've been in that situation myself, and you have to make the most of it for yourself, But knowing what you're coming into, knowing what it's like, and then being authentic in that messaging, so that the lived experience is what it looks like outside is key.
Yeah. I know a big part of your journey has been around digital transformation. How has technology changed your talent management strategy?
Well,
or impacted?
I mean, candidate scarcity is a major thing. We were talking earlier about, every automotive manufacturer in the world has to meet the same compliance in order to sell in certain markets. That means every car company is after the same skills. So you have to take a different approach to advertised response and having people coming in, knocking on your door, to knowing who these people are to begin with and reaching out to them and inviting them in. So a CRM-led approach is key. Talent pooling, that marketing crossover with the recruitment function is a key change in that approach, and technology enables it. It doesn't drive the approach necessarily, but you have to be able to safely and securely have people's details, to be able to communicate with them in the way that they choose, to be able to get that information out to them and determine what their response is to that information.
Would you say that was the biggest challenge? What was the biggest challenges when you were assessing it as a team? What did you identify as the biggest challenges that you needed to overcome, or that you needed to?
Initially, the key piece that we looked at when we were bringing in the new tech that we brought in last year was simplifying the process for hiring manager. Hiring managers are not hiring managers. I hate to say this to an audience of HR professionals.
They're all nodding, they're all listening going, yeah.
Hiring managers are hiring managers for about 2 seconds in their year. I ran some data at one organization, and every hiring manager that we dealt with hired 1.2 times a year in that organization. So they're using the system once, so it's got to be really simple. It's got to be slick in terms of the approvals process. You don't want to be chasing things it's a lot of money you're spending when you're hiring somebody, but that has to be efficient. So changing the running order on our approvals from a sequential process to a parallel process knocked 20 days out of the time it took to approve a role, which meant that we could get to the role quicker, we could promote the role quicker, we could be putting candidates forward quicker, they can be getting interviewed quicker. All of that means that you're quicker to market, back to the agility, means that you can get people who want to work here in front of somebody, get them selected, and if successful, get them hired, and if not, you can let them know why they're not successful and give them decent feedback on that process. So that has been the biggest change, that 20-day cut in the approval step, and then the speed that we're able to process candidates, in a nice way with great candidate experience through to selection has been one of the key points.
Yeah. What was you doing before? Was it like Excel?
No, we were
dramatic, but I mean, what were you using before?
We were using another ATS. We were using a large ERP system.
Okay.
Which was
so
fine.
Why the change then?
Well, the change, we came to the end of our contract.
Okay. No.
And we were looking at products that offered the ability to change things.
So you wanted some customization as well?
Yeah, and as things change, as we change our processes, to be able to
be agile.
Make those step changes in our hiring process, rather than having to put in a request, put it in the stack, wait for the developers to make the change, chase the developers, all that stuff. Be able to go into the system and then make the changes and change the data set or change the process or change the workflow, and then it's done. Or add a box, or create a portal, or all of the things that you need to do.
Without having to go and request it and wait 3 weeks, a month, etc., to be able to do that.
That user accessibility of being able to go into the system, do it, and then work out how do you make this thing work for us, or how can we play with this thing to make that much better at candidate capture, or going to events and sticking a QR code up and having a portal that you just scan with your phone and put your details in.
So there's a huge candidate experience element to that, obviously,
massively.
as well.
And you can see that in the data in terms of the response rates from candidates who want to engage with technology they see in restaurants or on online shopping experiences or any other consumer experience. Phones are critical. If you've got a great mobile experience and you can apply for a job from your phone,
QR code, details, straight in,
boom,
done.
Fill out some details in the form, auto-populate from your phone, and you've applied. That's
what you want.
Customer experience.
Yeah. Yeah. You have to have that now.
Yeah.
It's kind of table stakes at this point.
Yeah.
Before it was a nice to have. If you don't have that, then.
But you still see businesses. I've got a terrible admission. I apply for jobs all the time. I'm going onto people's websites and looking at what their application process is. I want to see what are they asking on their form.
Of course you are.
How many clicks does it take to apply? What are they doing? Oh, that's really cool. I want to nick that. Having a flexible system, I want to nick that in my application process. I nick it, I'll put it in.
Well, let's not reinvent the wheel. These guys are doing really well as well.
Totally.
What would you say is the biggest challenge for you and the team in implementing this? Because, it's all well and good. The software is just one part of it, but the actual implementation, execution, both from a systems point of view, but also culturally.
Can you see me coming out in a cold sweat of thinking about implementing an ATS on the fly, live, without disrupting existing hiring processes? What
advice should you give to our listeners then? And after you answer that, looking back, what would you have done differently?
What would I have done differently? Well, I'd have not had any other programs running at the same time. That was one thing. More people.
So all the attention on that one task.
More people, more time. Give it as much time as possible. Get as much expertise in as possible. Really take your time over thinking about what you want to do, and check and check and check again over any comms that are going out. Any people, people's data is so precious, and if they've put that into the old system and we're carrying that over to the new system, making sure we fields match, testing stuff, checking stuff. Much. The reputation risk if you get something like that wrong is immense. And one of the things about HR, about recruitment, is we had 5,000 candidate records in the system. 5,000 people that were live at different steps in the process, that we were taking their data from one place, putting it into another place.
Oh. How did you feel on that day when that was being transported over? Did you sleep that well that night?
I kept my phone ringtone was "Cold Sweat," James Brown. I was literally what.
I'm imagining the night of that. I'm sure it would be reported in one go, right? I bet you.
It was hitting the button.
Please.
First files have got in. Check them. Yeah. Lots of that.
Also, you only get that one chance to make an impression.
Yeah.
Right?
And if it goes right, nobody knows.
That's what we were talking about earlier, right? Because everyone expects it just to work, but when it doesn't...
Yeah, we were popping champagne when we've transferred all. What do you mean? That's your job. And it's like, no, it's not my job, and it's gone fine, and nothing visible has gone particularly wrong.
Okay, good.
And people got hired. We hit the same hiring numbers 1 month after that we were hitting 1 month before. We had a brief pause, but it was in August.
Nice.
So we do it at a quiet time. And from a hiring manager point of view, they saw a complicated system to raise a rec, and they went to a really easy system to raise a rec. No noise from hiring managers. They went onto the new system, got the link, got the portal, hit the
Did you even have to train them? Because I kind of feel like a good sign of a good system is when you don't need to train people.
Yeah,
because I had a leader that I spoke to that he said, Chris, I was sweating because I looked at the training modules and no one had done it, and he was like, oh my god. And but what happened was no one did it because it was so easy.
Yeah,
it's like no one needs to teach you how to use a social media app. You just know how to use it. You don't log on LinkedIn and be like, let me do a course about how to do Amazon. That. Yeah, exactly as well. So how was that process?
With some great support from the comms team, Anna McCabe and the ops team particularly worked on the communication out to managers, clearly articulating every step in the process when they needed to do stuff. We had the internal comms team writing all of our comms. They were communicated to death. They had links. They had everything they needed to be able to. And then there was the team supporting, being able to answer any queries that came through. And it wasn't.
What do you think? What worked the most when it comes to communicating? What do you think was because you communicate through many channels?
Yeah.
What do you think is the most effective way?
Depends on the individual. Some people read some people read the emails. They read the emails, follow a script, see what they have to do. Fine. Some people need to be shown. They have to physically see it, kinesthetic learning. They have to touch, see, feel, have any questions answered. Some people just want to play with it.
Yeah, fair enough. So you got to give variety and options to people as well.
Recognizing all those different learning styles, and the fact that it's a thing you only use once, twice a year.
Has it improved the amount of times they use it? I know you've only just done this, but have you seen any data on that?
We've seen improvements on the time. We've seen the improvements on the time it takes to go through. We've seen improvements.
The process.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
great.
Time it takes to approve has been dropped by 20 days. I've seen improvements on utilization. So a number of roles that have been requested through the system. I mean, ideally, we don't necessarily want that to be the case, but I mean, this has been implemented pre-Great Resignation paper being written, and we've kind of walked from September last year through January, February, March into this whole massive, recruitment and talent attraction is the center of the world, and we've got a system that's been able to cope. And as managers have been requesting more hires or been looking to replace people who are leaving, we've been able to accommodate that into the system, take those requests in and deliver against those on similar time to hire metrics that we've had previously, which, given the increase in volume without necessarily an increase in the team, shows greater productivity.
Would you say, has this freed you and the team up more? What impact has this had on you and the team in terms of your day-to-day work?
I'd love to say it freed people up more. The increasing volume of requests from managers has been able to be accommodated by the team, I suppose.
Are you getting less requests now because people can do stuff themselves, though?
They still have to request the hire, so the request actually goes.
But I mean, some of the other more administrative things where they're coming to you and the team asking, where they can. There's more like they can. There's now an element of self-serve.
Yeah, there's been a reduction in where's my thing. What's my thing? All of that.
Those things add up. Yeah. That's my point.
Be able to extract decent data from the system to know where people are in the system or where jobs are in the system, definitely, and sharing that information out to, as wide a community as we'd like. At finance, I know I've got links to reports that they generate themselves. HRBPs have all got links to that data as well. Very easy to build out linked reporting. So you just hit refresh in an Excel document and they've got the data.
So you've got that that's what I mean. Yeah. Especially now where you're moving so quickly, you need that real-time data. You need those dashboards. You need to put it in the hands of those hiring managers, those leaders.
People process data. Three things that are absolutely critical in any business, but the access to data. If you don't know what's going on, you don't know how many roles you've got open, you don't know where they are in the process, you don't know where the candidates are, you don't know when they're due to be selected. That's where stuff gets stuck. And being able to see where that sits, and then knowing that you've got smooth processing behind it, and you've got trained people who are able to make sure that process is followed swiftly is are the key elements that runs that Swiss watch.
Yeah, I know you're still early on the journey of this though, but kind of for you, what's been the highlights so far?
Getting the system up running with minimal noise.
That
is massive.
It works.
If that goes wrong, then everything comes to a grinding halt. So that's a major win. Being able to change stuff on the fly, being able to get the adoption of the system by hiring managers where when we had to make decisions about where we invested time and energy, we did invest on that hiring manager user experience. It paid dividends because the noise doesn't come from there and it can be fixed in the background. So those are the key wins.
What about feedback from employees?
Employees, they're using, employees who are using the system.
I mean, who have gone through the experience, the candidate experience.
Yeah, I'm conscious of what the recruitment team might say about things because they've been working with a new system and going through that process, and that
whole change management piece is kind of ongoing, though, right?
Their faces now, as it sounded really smooth. The team have been amazing, worked really hard and delivered. All credit to them to be able to do that. It's a tough thing to do.
100%. What about the support? You're working with Avature, right?
Yeah.
But what about the support from them? Because sometimes it's like you work with a partner, they're in, they're like, good luck.
From an implementation team point of view in the UK, it's been absolutely stellar. I think that Avature had some challenges themselves with the Great Resignation, to be honest. So
who didn't?
Yeah, we had some choppy waters for a period of time, but we were reasonably understanding and we were a delight to work with. They were able to work with us on that, and we've been able to get that stability in place. And we've got a great account management model. We're able to get things responded to quickly. We've still got implementation team supporting because we're putting performance management and internal mobility. We've bought a few modules that are going
one step at a time
in a pattern. Yeah. So
what's next?
What's next? We've got CRM is going live. So that's talent pooling and being able to work with the passive candidate market, and our talent community portal being opened last week. We've got internal mobility going live. Performance management is up and running at the moment. So we've got lots of things in the mix
just
right
a little bit busy.
Yeah, totally. Just combined with a car launch and new CEO and EVP and all the other things.
Yeah, we even spoke about it. So you got a new CEO joining.
Yep.
Amazing. So, can we talk about that? Are we allowed to talk about that?
Totally. Yeah. So Michael Leiters, he's joining us on the 1st of July. He's joining from another car company.
I was about to say, are you going to save that? The other car company.
He's worked for a couple of other car companies, actually. Yeah. So very excited about him joining. And he's going to bring a lot of expertise and knowledge from across the industry. We've got a new employee value proposition that we've been building out, and we're waiting for Michael to join for his input into that.
Why now? Why relook at that now, revisit that?
We're looking at that. We're really looking at it for the first time. So consolidating. There've been a lot of unwritten elements to what it is to work at McLaren, but writing it down and consolidating that into a message that everybody buys into and subscribes to, and that we can then broadcast internally and externally, is a massive thing.
Yeah.
And
how did you go about doing that?
Wow, we've been engaging with partners. We've been reaching out within the organization through our culture forums to identify what people feel,
what it means
see. What does it mean to work here? How do we do things around here? And looking externally at what message do we want to be portraying, summing up some of the things that we talked about.
Yeah.
The positive messages around the pace, the ambiguity, it's
good to be transparent about that. I love that. It's refreshing.
Turning that into a positive message around what it means to be here and why we do stuff the way we do. Getting that messaging right in order to make it not only sellable but authentic and real, and give the handrail, the identifying points about what it is to be in this organization, because the building's great, The cars are fantastic to see. We're doing lots of cool stuff everywhere. But what is it about being here? What is it that's different about being here over being in another organization? And how do you consolidate that? And how do you tell that story? That's key. And that's why Michael wants to be part of that storytelling element, because it's got to be his story as well.
Yeah, I love it. Last question. It's been a tough few years to be in a position of a head of talent acquisition and development.
Yes.
And which one is in any role, let's be honest, in any role, HR, any role in general.
For a 24-year-old as well.
You've aged a lot in the last 2 years. It must have been stressful.
Before I joined. Thanks for that.
2 years to take this toll on you if you're 24.
Yeah, school leaver.
What advice would you give to your peers out there right now? Because it is kind of feels like the Wild West sort of. We're talking about the war for talent. It seems there's a lot going on right now.
The war for talent. God,
is there even a war for talent? I've been saying that since for 15 years, and all of a sudden,
War for Talent was a book. You know, it goes. That's .com era. What's it like? Recruitment, talent acquisition has always been in the background. I used to describe it as HR's equivalent of taking the bins out. It was the job nobody wanted to do. We're now front center of stage.
Yes.
You know, this is the most important thing. My directors are wanting to know about talent insight reporting. They want to know about talent mapping. They want to know about talent pools. They want to know about what are we doing.
They're coming to you now.
Oh, I had a conversation last week with somebody very senior in the business. And it's like, which advertising mechanism are we using? And they reeled off a couple. And it's like, no, because that's appropriate for this market, this market, this market. We do this, and we've got this plan in place to do this thing. You know, it's great that there's that level of interest in what we do. And you know how much the industry's developed over the last 10 years. You know, the technology revolution, the number of products that are available that can assist, bolt onto your system using APIs and be useful for a particular project or a particular thing. All of that happening under the radar and now being brought bright out center stage. What can we get that can do this? Okay, there's this. And that has this advantage, and this will do this thing, and that will be able to feed that into that, and then that will give you a pile of people. Mm-hmm. Why didn't we know about this before? Because nobody asked, and we were cracking on with it, doing it anyway, trying to get the budget.
It's expected that it just happens, right?
Yeah, but having the message to colleagues, the message to the industry, everybody I speak to knows this. We're in the bright shining lights now, which is great. Being able to offer solutions to businesses that have got significant problems is great. The solution isn't necessarily just bringing more people in
or more technology.
Yeah, it's closing the door to people going out. It's making the place being a great place to be and work and deliver against what it is you want from your career. All of these factors. There's a shortage of people. There are great number of opportunities out there. You've got to be the best thing in town. You've got to be the best opportunity that there is for that individual. And some of that is about conversations. Some of that is about, putting practical measures in place.
Yeah.
But it's really exciting time to be in HR.
There's never been a more exciting time.
Never.
As well. And never been a more exciting, one of the most exciting places we've been to. So I appreciate you inviting us and coming on the show.
Great to have you here. I'm really loving showing
We're going to find any excuse to come back. But thanks so much for coming on the show. It means a lot.
No, appreciate it. But thanks. It's great to see you. Thanks very much.